Hey Tom,
How's it going, Mr.
hey,
Phil
can you hear me
Dalton?
okay?
Yeah, we're good.
What do you think of my backdrop, huh? I thought I'd make it appropriate.
I like it. It's good. If we can get one of those, I'd love to steal one of those flags, remake it.
Yeah, I can give you the link that I used to put this together because when I was putting together my garage gym this year for COVID, I was like, you know what? I already have that sort of red power rack and things were starting to look Cornell themed. So I said, you know what? I should get a Cornell flag. So turns out I still had one of the university usage of logos forms. So I just sent that in to, I think it was flags.com, had that made, and used those image files that I had, and there you go.
Nice. You want to show everyone the Teagle South sign too?
Oh man, I'd love to. Yeah,
Well,
I can take you guys a tour of this gym. It's tough to see in this lighting here, but let's see this around. Yeah. So there we go, Teagle South, right up there. You got all the dumbbells from about 5 pounds to 120. Actually, these dumbbells here, they were so difficult to get during the height of COVID. I had to like drive to a barn in Pennsylvania. I'm from Jersey, so it was like a 3 hour drive. But I don't know if you can see the rest of this rack here, but got a nice power rack here. Ivanko OM weight plates. These have always been my favorite because Jay Cutler featured these in a few of his videos, and nothing compares to that sound of like the deep dish iron clanging. What else do I have here? Of course, the goats here, Dorian, Ronnie, Arnold there. Got my multi-grip bar, easy curl bar, little beater bar, safety squat bar. So, really, I got it all.
yeah, that's a big setup.
Honestly, it's a 10 by 20 space, but it's got everything I need. And I've had some of my best workouts here. I thought, oh man, am I really going to get by without a commercial gym? What am I going to do all these months? But it just forces you to focus on the basics. And I've made like some of my best progress in years just working out here. And in fact, it was about 467 days since I even went to a commercial gym. I was tracking all my workouts. I'd go like quarantine day one, quarantine day two. I didn't know that it would be this long, but I'm just loving it. It's great. So I probably won't ever go back.
Yeah, I got to train in my basement for a couple months. And, I didn't have a rack, so I got really good at floor press.
Oh yeah, starting out, for those first 2 weeks, I didn't have a rack or anything. I had like some Dick's Sporting Goods 300-pound weight set, but doing like lunges in the street and just deadlifting and doing Zercher squats, man, like I almost threw up after some of those workouts. It's crazy how minimalist you can go and still have very effective workouts.
Yeah, welcome to DIY Strongman.
Exactly.
So I guess the most important thing to be asking you right now is how you doing?
Doing well. Trying to balance life as best as I can. I have a daughter. She was born 3 months ago, so it's our first child. So have her, managing work. I mean, fortunately, I still get to work remotely full time, which is great. But it was definitely a little bit difficult at first. Shuffling the priorities because obviously the baby and my family comes first and works. But fortunately, I had this garage gym, so. If it wasn't for COVID, I probably would have been ill prepared for fatherhood, at least workouts from that standpoint, because just driving to the gym 20 minutes, getting there, having a shake, going to the bathroom, using the weights, having another shake, coming back home, that like adds an extra hour to an hour and a half. And frankly, when it comes to having a kid, you just have to be ready at a moment's notice. So I used to be pretty regimented with, okay, got to eat every 2 to 3 hours. Have to go to the gym this specific time. But now, again, having the convenience of this gym, whenever I see a window, I come down here and I lift. And that just made things a lot less stressful. And I think it broke me out of that regimented cycle that I was in for so many years.
Do you ever bring your daughter down to the gym with you?
She's a little bit too young, so sometimes my wife stands at the door and she sort of looks around with very curious eyes, and she just has these very big eyes. Where right now she's in the stage where she's really just taking everything in. So it's just really nice seeing that every day. Where it's got to be an amazing perspective when like literally everything you see is new, right? So I know that the first time my wife brought her to the door down here, she was just peering in at everything. She was like amazed, but she's still a little bit too young to actually come in here and appreciate it or play around with like the 2 pound weights. But maybe in like another year or two, we'll see.
Yeah, I spoke with a bodybuilder about a month ago who his son trains with him every once in a while. He's like 7, so that's
Hmm.
a couple years away. And there's a strongman named Jerry Pritchett. I don't know if you know him, but I think 9-year-old son trains with him and his crew.
Wow,
He wakes him up every morning. He's like, Dad, we got to go train. So who
that's
knows?
incredible.
Maybe in 10 years, that's what you could be looking forward to.
Could be, yeah. I mean, even though I have a girl, I'll definitely introduce her to weight training and see how she likes it. I'm not going to force anything on her, but yeah, it's just really it's a nice place to just come and just decompress after a long work day. And yeah, again, just having all this simple bare bones equipment, it's forced you to get creative, with certain exercises. But even having things like a landmine, and having this host of dumbbells. I found that I didn't need cables, I don't need fancy machines. I really have this combination leg extension, leg curl, which is nice, but in terms of machines, that's all I got.
So what got you into lifting?
So I was I started lifting probably around 14 or 15. And I was doing it a little bit for sports, but mostly because I was a little bit chubby, a little bit overweight, 12 or 13. So I started doing push-ups and crunches in my room, and kind of an extreme person. So I just kept doing, hundreds and hundreds of push-ups and crunches, and then my dad actually bought me a very rudimentary weight set that we had in our basement at my parents' house. Just this little weeder set of standard barbell, very flimsy bar, but some little bench, adjustable dumbbells, and that's really where I got started. So every day after school, maybe 14, 15 years old, I would get home at like 2 or 3 o'clock, start lifting weights there, and I just fell in love with it right away. And it was one of those things where I knew from the start. It's one of those activities where you're just present, you're just in the moment. Something that definitely one of my faults is I'm always thinking ahead too much, almost to a fault, and I'm rarely present. So I found when I'm in the weight room, it's almost like this meditative type state, and I always really enjoy that. And I'm just addicted to the progress aspect of it, just shooting for extra numbers, extra reps, and yeah, it just became really enjoyable. So I always had a very positive association with that. I would lift with my father. I still occasionally do. And yeah, from there, I went to a commercial gym at around 16, 17, and then was there through college when I discovered Teagle and Teagle Down. And the rest is history at the Cornell Barbell Club.
Yeah, speaking of that history, you want to maybe get into making the Barbell Club? That's over 10 years ago now.
Yeah, oh my God, I can't believe it was 10 years ago. I mean, time flies. I was actually thinking back, trying to see if I remember everything that went into the formation of the club. And yeah, I mean, it's 10 years ago. Wow. But yeah, it started out with, I'd be going into to Teagle Down, and I was actually a personal trainer with the Cornell Fitness Center. So I was there starting freshman year. I was actually certified by ACE when I was 18 in high school. So yeah, I worked for the Cornell Fitness Center's freshman year, sophomore year, junior, and senior year. So I had exposure to the various gyms. I got to meet people that way, and then just started hanging out with people in Teagle Down, just having conversations, just really building camaraderie there. And one day, all of us decided we were like, hey, let's formalize this. Like, let's make this an official club. So we got all the documentation together, all the forms. We were able to get a faculty advisor, Ken Gabbard, who's still there. I think he's an admissions officer. We were able to get help from Adam Davis, who also worked there. And then, yeah, me, along with Jim Scheller, Justin Steimel, Andrew Kelleher, and others, we were able to form this club. And, really, besides the camaraderie, it was important because when you're an officially recognized club, you can actually get funding from the university. So we were able to get funded for trips like to the Arnold Classic, which we were essentially able to go there almost completely free. They actually paid for our car, for our hotel there. We were obviously able to use the Cornell logo on apparel and get discounts on clothing. So it started out as that, almost like in a self-serving way, but then it sort of blossomed into, hey, we can have various competitions. amongst other colleges, and we can also do fundraising. And something that I was really proud of was my senior year, we did a big campus-wide and Ithaca-wide fundraiser for ALS, which actually my grandfather died of ALS, so it was a point that was really close to me. But we were able to really galvanize the community, both inside the college and out, and I think we raised over like $10,000. So, something that started out as like a bunch of dudes just lifting weights was really able to blossom into something good. So that was one of my favorite takeaways from the entire club formation experience.
I gotta say, it's interesting from my perspective because I've read the entire Facebook page. I've seen gone through the documents and made an archive of everything that the club has done competitive wise. And it's funny to see or hear you talk about just a couple guys lifting in the gym, whereas I went through, 12 or 11 years of history that you guys created. And it's
That's
funny. Yeah.
It's very humbling hearing that. I always viewed it as this, this group of people, and I didn't realize that the legacy would carry forward. But yeah, definitely a lot happens in 10 years for sure.
Yeah, and it's definitely grown and progressed because again, I'm a nerd, so I've read all your blog posts from 10 years ago, but I can see the progression of when you guys are making the blog posts and using the Facebook page versus when I think they made the Instagram page about 4 or 5 years ago.
Mhm.
They made a different version of the website in 2016. I made a new version this year, and you just see the different iterations of the club, but it's the same sort of, I guess, foundational values of it's not just guys, but it's just a couple guys and girls who like to lift together and can compete and hopefully go to the Arnold again. I'd love to go to the Arnold
Oh
personally.
man, that was probably, if someone had to ask me what was my favorite experience in college, it wasn't a specific class, it wasn't some certain activity, it wasn't slope day. No, it was going to the Arnold Classic, driving there from Ithaca. It was like an 8-hour van ride. All of us rented a van, used the Cornell funds to that. Stayed in a hotel, went to the expo. We had duffel bags, filled it up with all these free supplements. It was like Halloween for lifters. It was unbelievable. And then of course seeing the competition, and that was actually the year that Branch Warren came back after tearing his quad, like off the bone. I think it was about 6 months prior, and he came back and he won the Arnold Classic. Like still to this day, one of the biggest comebacks I've ever seen of any athlete. It was just unbelievable watching that in person. And there's something about seeing like high caliber IFBB pros on stage in front of you that's just unbelievable because you don't really get a feel for their size on Instagram. And I think around 2012, 2013, Instagram was in its nascent stages. It really wasn't as prevalent as it is now. So we were still definitely going by the magazines, by like online photos and articles. But yeah, seeing those people in real life, standing next to them at the expo, it was just unreal. So that's a part and aspect of the club that I really, really enjoyed for sure. And I hope soon that with all these COVID restrictions, you guys are able to finally go out and do something like that.
Yeah, I mean, if it's up to me, we're just gonna kind of stay glued to the strongman side of it, but I'm sure
Yeah.
other people have their interests.
No, yeah, and that was something that was very that was something that was great about the club was the diversity of interest. Cornell Barbell Club. It's not just about bodybuilding. It's about strength training, powerlifting, strongman, and each of us within that club sort of had that little niche. I mean, I was more drawn towards bodybuilding, but yeah, it was we were able to take our expertise and our experience. Some of us had done competitions, and we actually even held campus seminars where people would join up in certain rooms, like almost like office hours, and we present on various topics. And it was really something that we were really tapping into the unique zeitgeist that is Cornell and the Barbell Club, in that we have, these very smart people like at an Ivy League school, but at the same time, they're really interested in fitness and lifting. And how do you combine that? Like what makes the value proposition of the Cornell Barbell Club unique? And it's the intellectual, but it's also the physical. So that's something that we were really striving for, at least when I was there.
Well, I guess you'll be happy to know that's pretty much continued in terms of the diversity of interests. Like we have two people who are really into rock climbing. That's their big
Mm.
thing. I people who've watch these interviews are sick of hearing me talk about strongman, but I do strongman. There's powerlifters, there's people who train bodybuilding. They haven't necessarily compete. Actually, we have one girl who got prepped for 3 shows, but all 3 got canceled. She pulled out for different reasons. I think the last one was COVID.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but there's certainly a varied interest. You don't just have to squat, bench, deadlift when you're there.
Hmm.
So
No, sorry, guys.
since 2013, I guess, what have you been up to?
Wow. So since 2013, I graduated and I started a career in pharmaceutical advertising. So I started out as a copywriter. I worked at this company called McCann Health, and from there I've been to a few agencies, but I've since settled at this agency called PBWA World Health, and it's a subsidiary of Omnicom Health Group. So Omnicom is a big media holding company. But yeah, what I enjoy about it is that, well, right now my job title is creative director, and I get to come up with creative ad campaigns that really synthesize and distill the science of certain pharmaceutical products and drugs and medical devices and market them towards a largely physician audience. So it's high science based, and I really get to, again, combine those aspects of creativity and science and health and communication. I was a communication major at Cornell. So I always knew I wanted to do something in the creative field. I was thinking, oh, do I want to go into screenwriting? Do I want to do something along those lines? But I think that, again, that combination of health and creativity brought me into this sort of career realm. And yeah, I've been working ever since I graduated in 2013. And it's definitely challenging, but it's very rewarding too. And again, just that balance of, still keeping my passion for weightlifting and bodybuilding, balancing that with now having a family, having a wife and kid, and still finding time to do what I love to do. It's difficult, but you can make it work. It's certainly not as easy as it used to be. Especially being a communication major. I take like 13 credits per semester, but I would I'd wake up late. I would go to a couple classes and head to Teagle Down and have not very many responsibilities. But I like to think what I learned from bodybuilding and especially from the club, the organization skills, the communication skills, scheduling, all those things really transferred over to my career. It's very, very transferable, even though it doesn't directly seem like that at first. Bodybuilding and fitness into the real world and into the real corporate world. So that's what I found, at least for myself.
You're kind of answered all my questions before I asked them. I was going to ask if you've had skills transfer from the gym that maybe you wouldn't have gotten in the classroom, but you already answered that.
Yeah, well, I can go on about that too. It was
Go for it.
there was some bodybuilder recently. I think maybe it was Jordan Peters, or I forget who exactly said it, but he was saying that if bodybuilders put even a quarter of the effort that they put into their meal prep, into their training, into documenting their effort, into their organization, into a business, they could be millionaires in a few years. It's just it's how you channel that energy. And I'll always have a real love for bodybuilding and for fitness, but I think on a larger scale, I have a love for making progress and for bettering myself. So those same micro progressions that you get in the gym, in the weight room, you can apply those to your career as well. It's like, okay, well, I had this great client presentation. Well, it could have gone a little bit better. I think next time I'm going to do this. I think next time, prior to delivering this job, I'm really going to reinforce these core concepts. I'm going to look back at my notes or my logbook and help these things. So, really, if you can make yourself addicted to progression as like a halo effect, not just in the weight room, I think you'll find that it really betters yourself in your career and your real life out of the weight room.
So how do you create those tangible goals? Like someone like me, I need to be working towards something as opposed, which is why I can't really, I wouldn't be good at bodybuilding because it seems too arbitrary for me. I need to set a new PR, work up, increase my working sets, stuff like, and so how do you take, say in the business world, you know, you set these little goals, but where do you see the end goal? What are you working up towards?
That's a very interesting question. You know, it's just, I feel like I'm always trying to catch up to other people in a sense. So whether it was the weight room trying to catch up to, I had this crazy training partner, Andrew Kelleher, and to this day, he did some of the most amazing lifts I've ever seen. He was like 170, squatted up like 500 for a triple. One day, actually, he put on his hoodie, got under 135, and he's like, Phil, I'm going to squat this 100 times. And he actually squatted it 100 times, unbroken. I mean, yeah, he would be standing there taking a few breaths and wheezing, obviously, but he didn't rack the bar until he got 100 reps. So, I mean, to this day, that was like one of the biggest feats of mental strength I've seen. But, you know, I've applied that almost competitive attitude where, you know, just trying to reach other people and then just always setting that bar higher. So, you know, for example, in my career, when I was starting out as a copywriter, I always wanted to eventually become an associate creative director. So I was like, okay, you know, by the time I'm 27, there's someone at my firm right now. He's like 28 and he's an associate creative director. If I could be an associate creative director by 27 or 28, that would be amazing. So okay, well, to get there, I have to first become a group copy supervisor. I have to manage these people. Then I have to get there. And I was fortunate enough to then become an associate creative director by the age of 26. So from there, I was like, okay, well, now who do I have to catch? Okay, well, now I have to get to a creative director. So it's always looking ahead and seeing who I have to catch and who my rivals are. And I know it's a cliche saying, but like when your idols become your rivals, right? So I think it's a nonstop thing, you know, and just like fitness and bodybuilding, it is a journey. But when it comes to your career too, the day you get complacent is the day you don't start doing well. So yes, I'm sort of guilty of not really stopping and smelling the roses, especially when it comes to success in certain areas. But I feel like at the same time, it's that drive that continues you. So I'd say like that's been my philosophy in the gym and in business, and both turned out pretty well.
So how did you go from communications to pharmaceuticals? Was there a chemistry interest, or were you just following Animal Pack? You know, like what kind of, where was that transition?
You know, I wanted to apply creativity and writing to a certain career path, and fortunately, when it came to pharmaceutical advertising, it was more. There was more of a need for people who could communicate creative and abstract concepts to doctors. So, of course, they were looking for people with biology backgrounds and chemistry backgrounds, but that wasn't all that was needed. So, I was able to actually, senior year of college, put together a portfolio of basically speculative ads for certain products, and that was able to showcase my creativity. So, I just made a bunch of fake ads, one for a depression product, one for a cancer product, just showing my like range of thinking and just you know, various ways of expressing these creative concepts. And I was able to interview, I think it was spring break senior year, and I got various offers that way. So it's not as disconnected as it may appear. I mean, just, you know, creative communication really lent itself well to creative advertising, and of course the product is more the medical products and the pharmaceuticals, but the essence and the spirit underneath was something that I really learned at school.
So you might laugh at this question, but do you ever watch moreplates.com on YouTube?
I do. You know, I just got into that a few months ago, and he's been blowing up lately. I think he's almost at like 1 million subscribers now. But yeah, he's. What I like about him is that he uses all these very high science medical concepts, and he's talking about various pathways and things of that nature. And then he throws in these phrases like that dude's sauced out of his mind. So it's like he's down to earth, but at the same time he's very scientific. So I feel like it's that combination of him being relatable, but also having credibility and authority that really makes him appealing to the masses.
And is that sort of what you try to do? And sort of because, you know, there's no reason I should be understanding pharmaceutical, you know, products that he's describing as an English major. So he kind of does a good job of dumbing it down for me.
Mm-hmm.
Is that sort of the area where you try to focus on? Is not necessarily dumbing it down, but you are the bridge between the company and the doctors, right?
Exactly. So it's taking these deep and complex medical articles and scientific information and trying to really distill the key points or points of interest in them, and then educate physicians on those points. So if a product has, for example, efficacy in a certain subpopulation, well, yeah, I mean, right now it's living as like a little table on page 26 of the prescribing information leaflet, but how can we magnify that? How can we amplify that and really show that benefit to physicians in an interesting way? Is it taking it and is it making some type of animation or video? Is it getting some key opinion leader to discuss this on YouTube and really highlighting this information? So the information and the medical jargon, that's my raw material, but that's what I then use to come up with these creative communications. So that's always been my approach to it.
It's an interesting field. My grandfather was actually in that field
Really?
back,
Wow.
yeah, back in the 60s.
Oh, so he's probably one of the OG Mad Men then.
Yeah, that was him.
Oh, wow.
So, what do you have planned for the future? Now you are creative director, right?
Hmm.
So, is there a super creative director? Is there a step above, or?
Yeah, I mean, after creative director, there's group creative director. So I certainly have my eye on that. And then there's executive creative director and then chief creative officer. And then, of course, then you can become a partner in the company. You can create your own company. But yeah, I'm just always keeping my eyes on that next step. So right now I'm doing what it takes to become a group creative director. But at the same time, I'm still not losing my passion and my focus for the gym. I've never actually competed myself, but every time I'm in here, it's always a competition against that logbook. And I think you were mentioning before, it's tough to get into bodybuilding because you don't have those tangible things that you're aiming towards. But I feel like there's a lot of crossover because when it comes to the gym here, I look on my logbook and yeah, well maybe they're eights or tens and they're not threes or fives. But yeah, I'm still trying to beat those numbers. Still trying to progress in terms of form. I like to video a lot of my sets so I can see how I'm tracking, what my tempo's like, and yeah, it's just getting better every single day. When it comes to where I want to see myself, in terms of bodybuilding and physique goals, I'm not too obsessed with being super ripped and lean right now for like the beach or girls. I mean, I'm married, like I don't really have any interest in that, but at least looking good in a tank top, looking good in a shirt, and just continuing to push the numbers in the gym. Um, while getting bigger and maybe a little bit leaner. Those are my goals right now. So it's not like, at least in terms of fitness, I have like a 5-year goal, like, hey, I want to step on a stage or I want to accomplish this. I just want to keep getting better here every day. But I think especially when it comes to my career, that's really where I have those tangible goals now. So it's just funny how things shift over the years. Like, when I was in college and when I was just obsessed and focused with weights, I was thinking, oh, let me get to this goal weight. Let me hit these numbers. I'd love to get to a 4-plate squat, to a 3-plate bench, to a 5-plate deadlift. And, after hitting those numbers and graduating, it's just funny how the priorities change. But again, I just use the gym here just as a mechanism of almost like release after the end of a long day. It's just very cathartic being in here. And yeah, again, still tracking those numbers and just seeing where things go in the next 5 years, however long I can do this without getting beat up.
So yeah, you seem to be interested in longevity in terms of your career and your hobbies, and I think that's
Mhm.
it's not everyone that I've spoken to has that sort of forward thinking. I mean, you say you sometimes don't really live in the present, but it seems like a lot of people are want to achieve this by 30 or whatever their goal is, then they don't think of the next 30 years plus whatever their retirement might be if they retire at 60.
Mhm.
Um, so I think it's interesting that you are a lover of the gym, but you're not beholden to it. And you like where you're at, but you're not that's not your plan for the rest of your life. You don't plan on you plan on progressing past a certain point. And I think a lot of people I talk to get caught up in reaching an end goal, and for the most part, they're not going to die at 40. That's not going to be the end of their life. So
Mhm.
there's so much more beyond that that it seems like you have a good fixation on.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. No, it's again, I sometimes I feel like if you always set end goals, then sometimes you risk actually achieving them, which is good, but then where does that really leave you? So I'm of the mindset that you should almost set unrealistic goals in certain senses because then you're always chasing something. And when it comes to the longevity aspect, especially of lifting, yeah, that's always something that I have in mind. I want to do this through my 50s, through my 60s. And again, even if it's not at that stage really for the physical benefit, I just love the mental and emotional benefit, that meditative present moment that you can get really only in the gym. And, I sort of evolved my training, especially after graduation, to reflect that. Especially when it comes to like the order of exercises, I was always, at least from a bodybuilding standpoint, thought that, okay, well, this is what the dogma is. If I'm doing legs, I have to squat first. I have to then go over to leg press, do leg extensions. But a few years back, I started really re-examining that and saying, you know what, I always feel better after I start with leg extensions. Then maybe I move into a leg press. Then, what if I squat third or fourth in my exercise, in my workout routine? And I started doing that. And I mean, yeah, of course you feel weaker, but at first, but then you just feel a lot more fresh. Everything's grooving well, really saves you a lot of aches and pains. So knock on wood, I haven't really had any major aches or pains or any joint issues. And I think it's because, again, like at the age of 25, I almost sort of, did an overhaul of my workout routine and order and said, hey, like I want to start training for longevity and progress, but, maybe I don't have to do, three or 400 pound squats, 4 reps first in my workout when I'm essentially cold. Maybe I can do that later on with 275, 315 as my third exercise. And I think that's definitely paid dividends, at least from a bodybuilding perspective, where I can keep training this way. And I would say it's very similar to, I don't know if you know John Meadows, but he's this famous bodybuilder and coach, and yeah, he's in his 50s and he's still training hard, and it's a very similar routine he has where he does sort of like a pump and an activation exercise first, and he does like the heavy compound stuff after that. So I've really applied that, and it's worked out quite well.
Yeah, there's some impressive masters lifters, bodybuilders. I mean, I I know more of the strongman and powerlift, but I don't know if you know a guy named Robbie Robinson.
Yes,
He,
yeah, I do. Hmm.
yeah, just shredded in his 70s.
Unreal. Yeah, he used to train with Arnold. I think he was he featured in Pumping Iron? I think he made a couple of appearances there. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
yeah, I remember seeing photos of him from the Masters Olympia, and yeah, even recently at Gold's Gym Venice, just like ripped in his 70s. I mean, obviously, maybe he's on a little bit of TRT at his age, of course, but you know, despite all that, it's unbelievable. And yeah, I mean, that's exactly where I want to be in my 50s, 60s, 70s. I still want to be doing this. Still want to be training hard. Just because I forget who said this. I think it was Alberto Nunez from 3DMJ.com, but something he said that always sticks with me, especially when I'm training. And I almost hear this like if I'm doing a heavy set of good mornings. He's like, one rep will not make you, but it will definitely break you. So, you always have to keep that in mind. Is it worth on one day, on one set of one exercise, especially on a movement like good mornings, is it really worth pushing to that extra rep where you're not sure if your form's going to hold up? It's definitely not going to make you grow significantly, but it can really mess you up if something wrong happens. So it's really playing around with that risk to reward and just being smart about your lifting. Leaving that ego, leaving that college machismo in college as you move on to your adult years, and I think that's really benefited me.
so how have you noticed the evolution of scientific lifting? I guess if I can say it like the 3DMJ websites, as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to, maybe someone like Branch Warren says, you just got to go and get after it, bro. And now it's, I guess Squat University is another good example of,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes he goes too far, like, your hip shift, now you can't squat with the barbell for the next 5 years. But,
Yeah,
how do you see that progression
another
from when you,
Yeah, another good example of that is Mike Israetel with Renaissance periodization. But yeah, I feel I'm sort of torn because I'm into science, I'm into health, especially with my career. I like reading clinical studies, but and what they're saying makes a ton of sense. And I'll start with the positives. I really enjoy that they've challenged traditional dogma, especially when it comes to diet, when it comes to nutrition, when it comes to training, and when it comes to really progressing on your weights and on your exercise routine. And I think I really like that aspect. I like quantifying things. So for me, that really appealed to me. But at the same time, part of me says, okay, well, yeah, maybe they are overthinking some aspects. Should I really be leaving 4 reps in reserve and then just building up in this mesocycle? Or should I be like John Meadows or Greg Doucette just saying train harder than last time, right?
Yeah.
So I sort of find myself between both ways. And almost like the political spectrum, it's probably not healthy to be in one camp or the other completely. So I feel like if you can take some learnings from those more, clinical people, and some learnings from those people who just flat out work hard, I think that that's the best way to really approach your training. I'm not saying one side is wrong and one side isn't. And I especially think over the past few years, there again has been this evolution challenging that bro science. But yeah, I mean, sometimes it goes a little bit too far to your point. Like, okay, well, people shouldn't be asking, well, my ankle is traveling 3 degrees to the right. I'm not experiencing all this dorsiflexion. So, I think I should re-examine this movement pattern. And oh, yeah, well, I should add, there was this interesting study that came out a few weeks ago about accommodating resistance on exercises using bands and things of that nature. And I know Joe Bennett, the hypertrophy coach for years, he has been a big proponent of using reverse bands on hack squats. And then this study came out saying, well, actually, most hypertrophy occurs in that lengthened state under load. So if you're sort of taking that load away with bands, well, maybe that's not the best way to approach training. Obviously, that's one article, but then people were going back and forth. Is this the right way to do it? So maybe in some areas things can get overcomplicated, but I think that on the whole, debate and conversation, and especially the proliferation of social media and these people getting study and science out there to at least allow people to form their own opinions. That's only been a boon for the industry and for people and for fitness in general. So again, just take what works from either camp, and really, if you're progressing, that means you're doing what's right for you. So if that's working really hard and just keeping it simple, or if that's taking some elements from the science, as long as it's working for you, that's the important part.
Yeah, and there's someone in the strongman world who's kind of a good example of that. His name is Brian Shaw. I don't know if you've heard of him.
Oh, of course,
He's,
yeah.
yeah, 4-time world strongest man. But in the past 5 years, really, he just wasn't quite there. He was a little too careful and thing. Like he'd spend 10 seconds making sure his hands were right on the farmer's walks. And, he's a really smart guy. But it got to the point where it just seemed like he was overthinking everything. And then you saw it at Worlds this year where he just attacked things. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a certain balance between, obviously he's an intelligent person. And I remember watching for the Arnold Santa Monica, they had a live stream going and he was walking up and down the sandbag course, counting his steps, seeing how many he would have to take before loading the sandbag. And then he was seeing, all right, if I'm walking, I have this many steps. If I'm running, I have this many. If it's like a staggered step with the sandbag, it's this many. So I think it is sort of bridging that gap where you can think about it beforehand, but after a certain point, either the bar is going to go up or it isn't when you're deadlifting. And
Mm-hmm.
he went from fifth for a couple years after dominating for 8 years, and he was second this year. He
I
just
know.
attacked things.
I was heartbroken that he didn't get first. I think it came down to like one event, right? I mean, he was so close to getting his fifth world's strongest man.
It came down to the stones, and
Mm-hmm.
he made a mistake by being a little too rushed.
Oh, man.
He misloaded one of the stones, and well, because I was super excited because he was previously known as the King of the Stones. Then Halfthor came around, and now it's Tom Stoltman. But seeing it looked like we were getting a prime Brian Shaw. How he got back to that prime, we won't ask about that. But you know, a pseudo prime Brian Shaw versus a very much getting into his prime Tom Stoltman on the stones was very exciting to see. But yeah, he bridges that gap now. Like he won his inaugural show. He hosted one in December called the Shaw Classic,
Mhm.
and you can see the difference between he's big, he's strong, but he kind of just needs to go for it.
Exactly. Yeah. Sometimes overthinking can lead to paralysis by analysis, and it's something especially true for people like the Cornell Barbell Club. It's this cerebral group of student lifters, and if you get too much into your head, and that applies to anything, it can really affect performance. So I think it's good to really take an objective look at what you're doing. Certainly quantify things with a logbook. Watch some video playbook. Have your partners say, really evaluate your form. But at the end of the day, yeah, you just have to like lift harder and push past those mental barriers. So that's something that I continue to apply here to my training. Where yes, back in college I didn't necessarily keep a logbook, and I do keep one now. But at the same time, no, like I don't say, okay, well, I'm going to do this at an RPE 7, I'm going to do this at an RPE 6. At the end of the day, at least for my situation, this is therapeutic. So if I have to put all of that work into something that's not even my job or my career, I probably wouldn't help with adherence either. So that's something to keep in mind as well.
So speaking of people who've made it into a job and a career, since I am a little bit younger than you, I came into lifting sort of at the tail end, or not the tail end, but when all these fitness influencers were exposed for being on SARMs and all that sort
Mm-hmm.
of, all those sort of things. What was it like watching the rise of people like David Lade and what's his name, Elliot Hulse?
Mm-hmm.
And so, what was it like watching the rise of YouTube fitness and versus and to where it is now? Like, or I think it's all on TikTok. I don't know. I'm not on TikTok, but
It was a very interesting trajectory because the initial YouTube influencers, they really portrayed an idealistic life, but the whole thing about YouTube is it's almost a medium that sort of shows you authenticity right off the bat. So what you think you're watching, especially when it comes to people documenting their lives, you initially think that, okay, this is authentic, this is what they're doing, but you have to have a healthy outlook about it because obviously most of these people are on steroids, they're on performance enhancing drugs, and I mean I figured that from the start, but there are a lot of people who don't really know that, and you know, they really go by what these people are saying, so much so to a fault where, obviously you're never going to look like that or you're never going to perform like that if you're not on PEDs. So for me, I still like watching all these YouTube videos and all these influencers, but I watch them in the same way that I watch reality television, in that, yeah, it's entertaining. Yes, it almost looks like it's an authentic documentation of real life, but everyone knows that there's stuff going on in the background. At the end of the day, it is entertainment or even infotainment. And I think that's sort of where the arc of YouTube has gone. It started out portraying these idealistic lives, and people were purporting to be authentic. This is the real me. And then it sort of took this turn where people were starting to get exposed for their SARM or steroid usage, for Photoshop. I know a lot of those Shreds athletes. There's this whole big supplement company called Shreds. A lot of them were exposed for using Photoshop. So that sort of fake authenticity was shattered and exposed, and then now we almost have an overcorrection where people are overly authentic. You have all these bodybuilders talking about their exact specific steroid regimens, and just people documenting every single aspect of their lives, and then you have this other phenomenon of people commenting and making reaction videos to people's videos, and then people making reaction videos of reaction videos. So it's taken this sort of weird self-referential turn, but all in all, I think it's just very healthy to just look at it as entertainment for the most part, and just really trying to make your own opinions when it comes to your training and your nutrition, and really what is real. So for me, I mainly use YouTube as a vehicle for motivation. I like seeing people train hard and heavy. You know, I'll watch IFBB pros go through some crazy workouts. I'll watch strongmen do amazing stuff, knowing that, yeah, I'm never going to get to that point, but it's a nice North Star to sort of shoot towards and to, you know, orient my motivation and my thinking before a workout. So long story short, that's sort of how I think at least YouTube has traveled over the years and how I use it.
That kind of also speaks to your previous point about setting unrealistic goals for yourself, in that, you know, if I'm watching Brian Shaw rep out 900 pounds on deadlift, I'm probably not going to get there. You
Mm.
know, maybe in 30 years, but you know, most likely I'll do my best and I'll get as strong as I can. But it's a goal that I can set that I'll be unlikely to achieve. And
Hmm.
with you, for example, you know, I say this in the nicest way possible. You'll never be Branch Warren, right? You know,
Yeah.
same way I'll never be Brian Shaw. Yeah, it's I think you have a good way of looking at these influencer types on YouTube as, you know, what do you call it? Infotainment.
Yeah, exactly. I view it as infotainment, knowing that there are elements of reality to it, but oftentimes they're obscured by elements that aren't realistic.
Yeah. Some people use fake weights, which is stupid, but
Yeah, that's a whole nother topic for another
yeah.
video from which we can create another reaction video and so forth and so forth.
Yeah. Well, you'll be happy to know this video is going to be uploaded to the Barbell Club YouTube channel. So
Looking forward to it. And honestly, if Derek from More Plates, More Dates does a reaction video to this video, then I think that my life is complete and I can just retire.
yeah, he'll say my glasses aren't natty. So speaking of retiring, I have one last thing for you before we retire for the evening.
Mhm.
And this is my favorite thing to ask people. So if you could go back to a young freshman Phil, an 18-year-old self, what do you think you'd say? And
Wow, man. I'd probably say, yeah, and if we can come full circle to the start of the interview, I'd probably say, you know, take it in. I'd say live in the moment. Um, at school, you know, I was always focused on that next exam, on what do I have to do to make the dean's list, to, you know, what do I have to do for next year for this internship, for that. And, you know, yeah, I would just say live in the moment, enjoy yourself now. And I don't know, are you a freshman, sophomore, Tom? What are you?
I'm going into sophomore year now.
Going into sophomore year. So if I could tell myself, and you know, in a more practical manner, if I could tell you, I would say enjoy these years at Cornell. They were, I can honestly say, some of the best years of my life for the reason that I was able to meet all these really cool people from different backgrounds at Cornell. Really able to, you know, focus my energies both in my studies, but then also in the gym. But please don't take it for granted. I mean, just know that, yes, I mean, life happens after this. Things can get difficult. You have a lot of responsibilities. Oftentimes it's exciting and it's fun and something to look forward to and not dread. But what was so nice about college was just the limited responsibilities. I was able to focus all of my faculties and all of my mental resources and physical resources on the gym and on study. And it was great. And never again in your life will you be able to have that sort of clear focus of your energy. So yeah, I would go back in time and say, yeah, you know, focus on the moment and put everything you have into it, and just know that this is the prime time of your life where that focus will be undisturbed by additional responsibilities. So take full advantage of it.
I like that advice. Thank you. And if you ever feel like making the 5-hour drive back up to Ithaca, you're more than welcome.
I
Come
would
train
love to.
again. Yeah, so we'd love to have you, one of the OGs, one of the originals. And well, thank you for your time tonight. Real pleasure talking with you in person. Well, in person, sort of. Face to face, we'll say.
Mhm.
Uh, and
Likewise, Tom. Thank you so much. I appreciate everything that you're doing for the Cornell Barbell Club, really getting the word out there, hosting all these interviews, especially at a time where in-person meetups was quite restricted. You found a way to really bring the community together, use this online platform. So keep doing what what you're doing. Keep reaching out to people. I think it's great, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what the future of the Cornell Barbell Club holds, especially with you playing a big role in it. And yeah, man, I'd love to come back to Cornell soon, and if I do, we'll definitely get a workout down in Teagle down for sure.
Thank you for those nice words, and yeah, love to see you. So,
All right, Tom.
have a good night.
Thank you so much. Take care, man. Appreciate it.
Take care.